share what our housing policy is currently. Section 2, the agency will only consider the granting of any financial assistance as defined under the Act for the following projects that provide housing. 1, a project that satisfies a definition of a continuing care retirement community project under Section 859-B of the Act, or 2, a project by an industrial, manufacturing, warehousing, commercial, research, and recreation facility as defined in the Act that provides workforce housing for its employees. For the purpose of determining whether a particular proposed housing project qualifies for quote-unquote financial assistance by the agency under the policy, the local or New York State zoning designation of the proposed project or the project site shall not be taken into account. The agency will not consider
If I may, I think it would be helpful to read, for example, the example given.
Sure.
I think it would
So an
clarify.
example given, thank you. For example, if a proposed housing project is designated as, quote, commercial facility under local municipality zoning code, such designation shall not be considered by the agency, nor shall it be dispositive in its determination of the qualification of the proposed project for, quote, financial assistance, end quote, under this policy. Moving on to Section C, the agency will not consider low-income, senior housing, student housing, including but not limited to dormitories, market rate, or any other type of housing project that does not otherwise satisfy the conditions described in A above as determined by the agency. Any housing project that satisfies the requirements of subsection A above must also satisfy the other eligibility requirements and restrictions contained in the Act. Notwithstanding anything herein to the contrary, the agency may consider granting, quote, financial assistance, end quote, to any housing project or any mixed-use project that includes a housing or residential component that has received the prior approval from the governing board of Ulster County and each town, village, city, and school district in which the housing project is located. And finally, as described in A above, the agency will attempt to attain the prior approval of each town, village, city, and school district in which a housing project is located. In the event that the agency is not able to obtain the approvals of all such entities, the agency may consider the granting of, quote, financial assistance, end quote, to such housing project without approvals. And this was reaffirmed January 19th, 2022. And as I said earlier, we are currently under a housing moratorium, and so the work for our governance committee is to create a draft policy that we can share with the entire board. So, all right. So, Lynn, again, just being new to the committee, I know that the last meeting, it seemed there was consensus and agreement on soliciting input from other key stakeholders and entities, and also existing potential housing policy regulations that might be in place, and to meet with legislators, executive branches, local town supervisors, to gather information on their housing committees and what they are doing. So I'm assuming we have not gotten to that stage of yet.
It wasn't even agreed to.
It was not agreed to. Okay.
It was a recommendation.
Okay.
I believe that there had been some prior work done, but I have not seen that, the responses to that. And, barring that, I think it's important that we divvy it up.
Right.
And see if, and even we have a housing committee, a subcommittee.
Yes,
Aren't they looking? So I would even engage
the working group
around helping to divvy up, because 3 of us on this committee is not enough to get to this information as quickly as possible. Before we start putting some guidelines in place, I think it would be helpful to find out where some of these other committees are working towards. There's a committee that's a part of the executive branch, there's a committee that's part of the legislative branch, and I think that if we spend time understanding what they are coming up with and the kinds of things they're thinking about, we will have a better sense of how we as the IDA can help with the tools that we have. But short of that, I think, trying to set up a policy kind of in a vacuum without input and consideration as to where some of the other groups are going, it makes it somewhat impossible to really ensure we're adding value and doing something that's going to end up with a result that everybody's looking for, which is more housing in an environment where we don't have any.
Right.
We have no rental.
Right. Okay.
You know, we've got some work being done at the Golden Hill site, et cetera,
Mhm.
but, you know, rentals are in short supply, and it's impacting our ability to retain workers in this area. I mean, even just on some anecdotal, I've talked to some of the farmers who have people that are driving an hour from other communities outside of Ulster County just because they couldn't find housing here. So if that's happening at the farm level, I'm sure that, it's happening elsewhere. I know that folks are having a hard time hiring people, and part of it is they don't live locally, and people want to work locally.
Right. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
All right. So it sounds to me that maybe our first step is this governance meeting today. We come to an agreement in terms of what our strategy, and actually define what our strategy is, agree to it, and then which would include, I would think, engaging the working group with Steve Kelly, I think Rashida, and I think they're the two on the housing committee, and then divvy up the work in terms of what we come up with for a strategic plan. So maybe today what we do is come into some idea and agreement on what our strategic plan should be. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So I guess the first step is, has any research been done by the committee for, at least in terms of having an understanding of what's going on, at least in our county or potentially surrounding counties, and what other IDAs are doing?
I started to do some of that.
Yeah.
My understanding is that was available, but I've not seen it
Okay.
from the prior group. I mean,
Okay.
I'm really waiting for the information, which I'm understanding copies were given to folks, but I never received one.
Okay.
So I can't speak to what we do have. I've been asking.
Okay. So the first thing is researching existing policies. So there's those potentially other IDAs, right? Would be one way. But we also want to, what other existing policies might we want to look at? I mean, I think we want to understand what the town and the executive branch is doing and the legislature, but are there other entities outside of our county right now that we potentially would want to look to in terms of researching policy? There's other IDAs, obviously. Is there anything
Other
else?
IDAs, but I think that there also, I think a broader search even across the country. I mean, this is not unique to Ulster County. This is, everybody is having this issue with regards to housing.
Okay.
I think that, just expanding the search beyond, and what are other counties and states looking at and doing could be helpful.
All right, so our first step would be doing, not first step, but one area that we need to explore is the research related to IDAs and what else is happening in terms of innovative housing policies in the broader country, given that the country, it seems across the board, everyone has experienced some type of a housing crisis.
Now,
Okay.
we also, I believe, and I would like to check this with our attorney, but I think the IDA has the ability to purchase land. And, maybe we start to look at what land is available across the county. I think we need to first clarify with the attorney that, that is something we can do. I mean, is there something we can do that would be enticing to a developer to want to come here and
All right, so we have to
Develop.
define what our boundaries are and what we're capable of under our guidelines and the laws that we work
Right.
from. Okay, so that's one part of the strategy. We have to do that homework, right?
Mhm.
So we have a legal part of this, which maybe makes sense once we get a better idea of what these other existing policies might look like across other counties here, as well as nationally. I think the second thing we need to do in terms of a strategy moving forward is meeting with housing committees in the executive office and also at the legislative level as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then we also need to meet with town supervisors.
Yeah, even just a phone call to them
Yep.
about, their housing concerns. I know Woodstock had a housing committee. They were doing some things that got published in the
So does
newspaper.
Ackert now. They have pretty active.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Accord was looking at it as well. So I think that it's not only talking to the town supervisors, but finding out if they have working committees, finding out what progress those working committees have made.
Okay.
And maybe obstacles that that the IDA can assist with.
Yep. That's, yeah.
Maybe, it's even just putting a general question so that if we're all calling, we're all trying to gather the same amount of information.
Oh, I like that. ID general questions that we can
Yeah.
ask across
Yeah.
the board. We can
Yeah.
use as a tool.
Use as a tool for
To
discussions with the various groups and town supervisors, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to kind of start a list and then send it around
Yep.
to you and Kashtub
Yep.
to see what's missing, what other things should we be thinking about.
Got it. I like that. Okay. All right. And then, so I'm just kind of trying to do this sequential. So we have the research existing policy IDAs and other IDAs across the country potentially. Then the second thing we need to do, and some of this can happen simultaneously, right?
Mhm.
Because we'll be divvying up the work across not only this committee but the working group as well. Meeting with housing committees, executive offices, legislative level, town supervisors, and then potentially town working housing committees in these different towns. Then we also want to identify or create actually a list of questions that we use, basically to create a tool that we could all use to gather information, what we think is the most pertinent information we need to gather. And then we also want to engage with council to start to make any considerations around legal parameters.
Land purchase.
Land
what
purchase.
Limitation does
Exactly.
he believe we have?
All right.
Yeah.
And then I would think from that 5, we would create actually a proposal to the full board.
From that.
From
yes,
all
the
that.
outcome.
Yep.
Right.
So we would create a draft proposal, housing proposal, for review and comment from the full committee.
And do you have some of that data from the old committee?
Hold on for 1 second. I have some information here.
Because I would love to go through that.
so
I have not seen
I
it.
think what would be helpful, Lisa, maybe you can make copies of what I have that I was given. They're hard copies that were given to me when we transitioned to me as chair. That here, if you want to do that. Well, maybe stick around because I'm not sure how much time. Thanks. So we can get a copy for Lynn, and then we'll need a copy for Kostub, and
I thought Kashtub had a copy.
just to make sure. And we should get one to Rashida and to Steve Kelly, too. Thank you. Okay. And then we'll create this. And I know part of this strategy may be when we get there, but I don't want to lose sight of it, is maybe we do a completely different UTEP around housing. We might end up have to do that. But I just wanted to, remind us that that's probably one of the things we'll do as part of this strategy moving forward. Okay. Lynn, anything I'm missing from, again, your previous meetings or things that you want to add or?
No, we haven't really focused. We were focusing on some other items. The housing stuff came up a couple of times, but, more from the perspective of wanting to get the info from what the past board's work had been. We don't want to. It was going to be helpful to inform how we proceed.
Okay.
So,
All right.
there
And so
wasn't really.
we essentially have 4 things, kind of homework that we need to do before we can get to step 5, which is creating a draft policy for consideration by the full board. We have 5 people between the governance committee and our working group. So what I will do is try to divvy up these these sections for somebody to take the lead on them. Lynn, you said you would do
I
the
would work
tool,
the
create
question.
Okay.
I'd start the questions.
All right, that-
And send it to, I guess, send it to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to have to, who
I'm
heads
gonna
up the
need
work group?
I'm gonna need time to reach out to Steve and to Rashida, and we'll have to get Costume up to speed as well,
Okay.
since he wasn't able to be
Yeah,
here
because
today.
once I have it, I want to send it around and,
Yeah.
and get it started.
Right,
So anybody
right.
has input, we can
Yeah,
modify it
yeah,
as we go.
yeah. And Lisa, we'll have this in the minutes, right? So we'll have kind of this step by step what we're gonna do that I can share with the rest of the group. Okay, thank you. Anything else, Lynn, around housing? No. Okay.
Other than I know that we committed to trying to get something done in the next 3 months, but I think
We will give it our best shot.
I think we're already over the 3 months.
Well, then we'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's not a problem then. Okay, thank you. All right, moving to new business. And Lynn, I'd like to ask if you would report out from executive session when we were discussing board evaluations, which we're required to do on an annual basis.
Yeah, the ABL requires us to evaluate the effectiveness of our that we said some agreed. To a question. The decisions made by board members are arrived at through independent judgment and deliberation, free of political influence or self-interest. Everyone agreed. Individual board members communicate effectively with executive staff so as to be well informed on the status of all important issues. Everyone agreed to that. Board members are knowledgeable about the authority's programs, financial statements, reporting requirements, and other transactions. Everyone agreed. The board meets to review and approve all documents and reports prior to public release and is confident that the information being presented is accurate and complete. Everyone agreed to that. The board knows the statutory obligations of the authority, and if the authority is in compliance with state law, everyone agreed to that. Board and committee meetings facilitate open, deliberate, and thorough discussion and active participation of members. Everyone agreed that is true. Board members have sufficient opportunity to research, discuss, question, and prepare before decisions are made and votes taken. Everyone agreed. Individual board members feel empowered to delay votes, defer agenda items, or table actions if they feel additional information or discussion is required. And we have everyone agreeing to that. The board exercises appropriate oversight of the CEO and other executive staff, including setting performance expectations and reviewing performance annually. Everyone agreed. The board has identified the areas of most risk to the authority and works with management to implement risk mitigation strategies before problems occur. 4 agree and 1 said somewhat agree. And board members demonstrate leadership and vision and work respectfully with each other, and everyone agreed. So that's the summary of your results.
Thank you. Right. Can I have a motion to adjourn the governance meeting for the IDA? It is 1:35 p.m.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned. All right, good afternoon, and welcome to the Ulster County Capital Resource Corporation Governance Committee meeting on March 13th, 2023, and it is 1:40 p.m. All right, I'd like to call our meeting to order. Roll call: Diane Einen, present; Lynn Archer,
Here.
and Kostub Wahal is absent with notice. All right, if you could refer to page 3 in your meeting packet and review the minutes from the meeting on March 31st, 2022. And when you've done that, and I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting.
Yeah, these are from the meeting from March 31st, 2022.
2, which means I was the
I
person
wasn't here then.
present.
This was the old board.
Yes, that was, and I was on that committee at the time.
Yes, you were.
So I will pass a motion to accept the minutes from this meeting. A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Public comment? Anyone for public comment? No, thank you. Okay. At this time, I would like for us to go into executive session. We're going into executive session regarding confidential information regarding the IDA. Each year, we are required to conduct an organizational evaluation and to assess overall effectiveness and performance of the organization. So we will report back out under new business on our agenda today, and we will do so without attribution of who said what to maintain anonymity of the responses. So I would like a motion. It's 20 minutes to 2, a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're going into executive session. All right, we are out of executive session. Can I have a motion to come out of executive session
So
at
moved.
1:43? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next agenda item is the 2022 real property report on page 6. As already indicated in comments and discussion during the IDA meeting that happened just before this one, we need to approve the report and approve the report to go to the full committee for approval.
So moved.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Thank you. All right. Old business, housing policy on page 7. Okay. Just give me one moment. I do not think this differs at all from...
It's the same.
It's the same. So the housing policy for the CRC is identical to the one for the IDA, so I will not read that again. And I would like our comments and strategy that we identified for moving forward around the housing policy for the IDA also be reflected in the minutes for the CRC meeting. Unless there's anything you would like to add to the housing policy conversation that we already had.
Yeah, the only difference, I'm sorry, there is a difference in the how, item F is not in the CRC policy. And that is, the agency will attempt to obtain prior approval from the towns.
That's because there's bonds and there's no taxing
required,
jurisdictions
right.
impacted, so thank you.
Yep.
Alrighty. New business, board evaluations.
The board evaluations are as highlighted and summarized in our previous meeting, and the agree and somewhat agree stands as read out prior.
Thank you. All right. And may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? It is 1:46 p.m.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned. Thank you.